chit-chattering at the school, and I was labelled with the dyslexia as well. And sometimes that can be really stifling. Greetings. Thank you each for being present today. I am extremely pleased to be connecting with a fantastically gifted spiritual author and psychic. Thank you for being present with me today, Alison. How do you do?
Hi there. Hi. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. A little bit warm because we are, we're moving towards summer. It's springtime. I can hear some people mowing their lawn outside here. You tell me they're mowing their lawn outside where you are.
That's exactly right. I'm just waiting for my dog to start barking.
Well, hopefully it doesn't kick up too much because I've got a bit of hay fever in the springtime, and I like to keep myself without the sneezing. I'll get all red cheeks, but we're doing all right. Thank you for holding space for me today. I've been really excited to connect with you. I've saw you interviewed the other day, and you've got some really interesting things to say about spirituality. And I see, after checking you out, that you've written some really cool books. So I'm excited to hold space and to learn about these things.
So that's the dog. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to take her down to the. I'll take her. I'm working in the bedroom now, but he's got to do past me and down. I mean, I think 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he should be away.
Well, all I say is I'm grateful that they're doing the lawn mowing and not me or you.
Well, exactly, but it is quite funny. I mean, you wait a year, and you want to do a recording, and then suddenly they appear. You couldn't write it. Anyway.
So tell me about your passion for writing. Like, is this something that you always were familiar with? Were you always keen on writing? Were you encouraged when you were a young lady in your schooling, or is this something that you have found to be a gift that you've fallen in love with as you've grown?
Well, to be honest, when I was at school, much to my surprise and disappointment, I was actually bottom of the class in English, and I loved writing. It turned out that I have a sort of mild form of dyslexia, but I managed to cope with it. I memorize things. And there's some words I have difficulty saying. But no, I used to, in my times when I was locked in my bedroom for being naughty, I would write poetry, or I would write articles for, I remember the Bunty, that's giving me my my age away, the Bunty magazine. And so no, I wasn't. And I certainly didn't have any confidence. But what happened was, I happened to be on a holiday, happened to see this sign for a gypsy with a crystal ball, which intrigued me. And she told me everything that was so accurate. I just couldn't believe it. And I asked her what I didn't know. And she said, well, what did you always want to do as a child? I had no idea. And she said, to write a book. In fact, you'll write at least 2 books. Your second one will be linked to America, and that's the one to watch. But your first one will come about in a certain way. And she described events that did happen 2 years later. Because, I mean, when she told me, I was like, I couldn't write a book, and...
Wow. So first and foremost, I myself was sat in the corner because of my chit-chattering at the school, and I was labelled with the dyslexia as well. And sometimes that can be really stifling. It can make you feel like you're not good enough, and it's a bit of a stigma to put on someone. However, when we grow and we learn through the experiences we each have, we find actually that it's actually a gift. We can find that we're actually very talented in creative writing. So you'd find that you were writing poetry in your room when you've been a bit naughty. I don't need to ask about that, do I, Alison? But you found that you were gifted these creative pursuits. So how old was it when you had this crystal ball reading? How old were you?
I think I would be around about 32, about 32.
So it's a very, for me, I remember the first time I got my first astrology reading by a professional who I had admired for quite some time. And it had such an impact when you make that connection, right? How did it make you feel to have someone see you like that?
Well, the thing was that I really didn't believe it. And so it went out of my mind. And it was only like 2 years later, something, I was on holiday, and whether I was bored or what, I have no idea. I had this absolute urge, go and get a pen and paper and a notebook. And I could clearly see the notebook. It was a big black notebook with different coloured pages. And I went to the shop, found the exact notebook, and basically I sat down and wrote my life story. And then a girl I had helped in the past with photographs of my animals for her book, she called me after that, about 10 months after that, and she said, you know, I'm looking to do another book, but can you give me any inspiration? What should I be doing? So I said, oh, you never guess what, I wrote this book. And she said, well, look, I don't go straight, but let me read it, and I'll give you some pointers. And the next day she phoned me. She said, I stayed up all night reading it. It was fantastic, and I'm going to help you write it. And we got a publisher in Edinburgh immediately. It just, everything fell into place. So that was my first book. That was Dark Storm, Golden Journey.
Wow, so that sounds like a path of least resistance, as you say. Like it just opened up, you just flowed, you got the support, and you managed to get this published. It sounded like it was very flowing. How long did that take to come around for you?
Well, it took a year to write, actually, both of us, and we had great fun in between that. You know, I mean, it just some crazy times writing it, and it was very, you know, sort of cathartic. I mean, it was my life story, and viewing my life story was, you know, in a way that people would understand, was actually, yeah, life-changing in a sense. So
very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
And so it's also like I imagine, I've not written my life story as of yet, but like I imagine it's quite cathartic and quite healing to see yourself from a step back and also from a step in, and so you get to be more of yourself and also clear your plate, so you step into a whole new journey as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was that halfway through the book, we took a weekend off, and we both resumed on the Monday. And she said to me, I can't write anymore. And I said to her, neither can I. And we reviewed it, and it was just so negative. It was just so, we were saturated with it. And so we began again. We didn't begin the whole thing again, but we began the part that we were on. And it caused us to actually miss the first deadline, which is not usually very acceptable with the publisher. But it was more important that we got the book to have the right tone, which is what we did. So we had to work every day, hours a day, 11, 12 hours a day. So yeah, but it was great. It was
Good
great.
work. It's funny,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like sometimes when we got a deadline, it can make us really put out our best work, and yet when we've got this kind of exponential, oh well, we'll have it done in a few weeks, we're more likely to just put our feet up and go and do something we'd rather, right?
Yeah. Deadlines. Yeah, it was good. The second book was different. That took me years. That was The Signature from Tibet.
So where do you get? So the first one's more of a life story. The second one,
Yeah.
is this an inspirational tale, like, or a novel?
It's based on a true story of my journey, which has actual miracles in it, and situations that you wouldn't believe to be true, and also connections that weren't apparent at the beginning. But the book was actually suggested to me through His Holiness the 17th Karmapa in India, which I travelled to see and got through armed guards to see and everything else. I mean, so that was a journey. But it began with a journey, well, I moved house to the country. A girl turned up and said, you know, you've got a healing centre. What do you do here? I must take you to meet Akon Rinpoche, founder of Samiling, first Buddhist centre in the West. And it was on that journey, about a mile from Samiling, that a crow flew into the car window. And we picked the crow up, we took it to Samiling. It went to Akon Rinpoche to decide its fate. And at that time, you know, I would have put it out its misery. But anyway, that's not the Buddha's way. And This journey was remarkable, and it transpired all. This went on for years. I mean, this wasn't just, hello, here's a meeting. But at that first meeting with Akon, in the first 10 minutes, he said, "I will be the overseer to your project, and I grant you a Dharma center." I mean, I didn't even know what a Dharma center was. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know why I was there. And
yeah, but what is a Dharma center? Is it somewhere?
Yeah, it's a spiritual teaching center.
Wow, because that's so basically you've got different types of facilitators there doing a massage or meditation.
Yes, potentially, but it is a teaching center rather than a healing center. Mine was a healing center, and he asked me to write the plans out. And I wrote more plans than you can even poke a stick at. And he didn't really look at them, he just gave them back to me. No. And it was only through telling the story to my uncle, that my uncle, who was a dentist in Edinburgh, he said, I had a delegation come to me in 74. Right. And he said, I think they left some document. I've still got it. Now, he had retired by this time. So this time we're in 94. And he looked the document out, gave it to me. One day, Phillip with Akon refusing my plans, I showed him the document. And he couldn't believe it. He said, "Do you know what this is? Do you know who this is?" And Akon was a very quiet man. My friend heard him at the end of the corridor, this long corridor. When he was asking me these questions, he was so shocked. And I told him, I said, I got it from my uncle, a dentist. So he then said, "This is a picture. This is a tour program of His Holiness the 16th Kamapa." And he said, "I was interpreter at the dentist, so I remember it all very well." And very unusually, he has signed this document, and this is a message to your uncle, and he's dated the message. And this is a rare document because of the invasion of the Chinese and a lot of documents destroyed. And then there's a court case between two Karmapas, the Chinese Karmapa and the Tibetan Karmapa. The Tibetan Karmapa escaped from Tibet and lives in Dharamsala beside the Dalai Lama in India. So it was a huge, awakening. And the amount of coincidences, like, for example, their deity is called Tara. My daughter's called Tara. I'd always wanted to call my son Drakar. And it turns out that Milarepa, their deity, the first enlightened being in one lifetime, his cave was called Drakar. So there was all this information that I had that started, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, "Oh, I can't believe that." And eventually, when the Kamapa said to put the signature in a book for the world to see, and so I had to write the book. Then I was refused entry to Tibet. And
your book's called The Signature. And
the signature from Tibet.
You met this spiritual guru, leader, how do we say it, Kamapa?
Okay, so he's the Kamapa, and he is the overall teacher of the Kagyu lineage of Buddhist teachings. Now, Sami Ling is Kagyu. The 16th.
So is this like India or Tibet type Buddhist teachings?
Yes. The Tibetan lineage.
So this is the original kind of thing which you would learn if you're taking a vow to learn about the spiritual journey and all these types of teachings and practices.
Well, yes, but the Kamapa is the overall head of the lineage. There's 4 separate lineages.
So if I want to get this is kind of a very spiritual kind of title. A lot of prophecy goes into this. It's much more metaphysical. And so when you're experiencing miracles, which are manifestations in the physical of something which we're deeming as a spiritual nature, it does kind of send you through a loop, right?
Yeah.
So this is a great story for you, as I just looked at your natal chart for before we got talking, just for the audience. I just wanted to mention that you have some very interesting spiritual connection with regards to your Mercury being in a conjunction with the South Node. And this is bringing through wisdom. You are a conduit for spiritual wisdom and philosophy. And so for you to find yourself in the right time with these connections it's just so brilliant to hear your story. And yeah, I want to hear more. Allow me to listen.
Well, it was incredible because, yes, the Kamapa, it turned out all these different connections. Akon was my overseer. The Kamapa was the teacher to Akon Rinpoche, and he was also the overseer to the building of Sami Ling. And so all these different connections, the Buddhists believe crows are incarnate lamas. So there, you see, maybe that could be a reason why Akon, the crow, flew into our window. But the crow just keeps coming, and you know, Akon may have seen it. I can't speak for him. He may have seen it as the crow giving its life to alert Akon to pay attention to me, because for probably 2-3 years, there's zero chance that Akon or I knew my uncle had the 16th Kamapa signature. So the 16th Kamapa, he is a reincarnate Lama. You know, he's the highest of the teaching order of the Kagyu lineage. And he himself performed miracles. And so to have his signature, Akon said it was a very rare relic to the Buddhist Sangha, the Buddhist community. And the miracles that happened in between that and on from that were just, and the connections were just incredible.
So you've just been following the trail, and the signature is the name of your book.
The signature from Tibet, because I have the document. Yes, I have the document. I have it's a tour program that he gave to my uncle, who was the Scottish dentist. But the book, basically, I said to Akon Rinpoche, I said, this is what I went down and I told him, this is what the Kamapa said. I have to put it in a book for the world to see. So what should I make the book about? And so he didn't tell you. You have to work it out yourself. And I said to him, so I've decided I'm going to another meeting. I said, I'm going to go to Tibet. I booked it. And he was horrified. He said, you're not going. He said, it's too dangerous. Anyway, so I didn't heed that. And my son and I went, and we arrived in Nepal. And almost immediately the Chinese authorities were on to us. And we were in a monastery. It was pretty scary.
We did look at your charts before. This is about 12 years ago, is that correct?
When did I bring it out? In 2015.
Right, so your trip to Tibet?
It would be round about 2000 and probably 8, round about the 2000, I would say.
Which is so interesting, because that's a whole Jupiter cycle ago. It would have been just after Jupiter transit your North Node, which is at the end of Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's home sign. And then as Jupiter made its ingress into Capricorn, where it is currently, which is the 12-year cycle. So now you've come full circle, and your book's being published, and you had this journey of learning what the book was going to be about after being guided to write it. And that's amazing. Long may you continue.
Yeah. And I think, for that experience, and we were refused entry into Tibet, I had to go to Tibet in my mind. So I became part, if I was writing about the Tibetan nomads, that I was there. I was witnessing everything that was going on, and I just wrote down the conversations that I heard and the things that I saw.
You embodied the Mercury, because Mercury is Thoth, or the scribe. It is the almost like the narrator. And so you being present to witness these different conversations and to use them as a scribe within your story, well, that's very much playing the role of Mercury, and you are a Gemini as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good stuff. And so were you astonished by what was coming through you at this time? And you're writing, you're like, wow, I didn't see this coming. And what were you learning about that through the material?
Do you know, I don't think I did. I think I was more conscious of people who came into my life in even just walking into the whole, at that point, I was living with my son and 2 children, and it was like, oh, it was like being dragged back from this beautiful, peaceful environment into, and I used to say to all of them, you have to understand, I've just spent the last 7 or 8 hours writing, but I've been in Tibet, I haven't been here. And in the quiet and stillness of the monks, or, you know, the nomads, this gentle way of life on the Tibetan plateau, to come steering back into, that was what was hard. So I guess I didn't really ever think about how amazing it was, inverted commas, to be there. You know, it was amazing.
It sounds like quite an experience. So when you come from Scotland, right? So in your growing up experience, was it much of a spiritual practice, or did you get would your family indoctrinate or bring you into many spiritual concepts? Do you mind me asking that, or even the heritage of the town which you're born into? Was there any traditions that were passed on to Buddhism, or any of these types of things that you would later be exploring?
Well, you know, we went to church every Sunday, but I didn't quite get that, because, you know, my mother could be, I mean, she could be vindictive. She seemed to break God's law. But the thing is, and I was young to know that, I had a vision of an image of this person. I saw this being, and he said to me, he said, I've come in the image of Jesus. All right. And I pinched myself, and I ended up all bruised, because I was only 13 and I didn't know what I was seeing. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing, more to the point. So I just kept pinching myself. And this image said, you will understand one day. It's all going to be fine. You'll understand. Basically, that was the message. And when I was, you know, with my mother, living in under these relatively really stressful times, because I never knew what was happening. I didn't know what was happening next. I had to sometimes preempt her. So therefore, I began to use my senses. I began to read her, and so I needed to know what her next move was. And in a way, that was a great teaching, because I used to play games to predict either what she was going to say or what was going to happen. But she would go to church every Sunday, and I would have to go along. But I actually enjoyed being in church, because I loved the colour of the stained glass. I could zone out in this, what I felt was an amazing atmosphere. But she would use things like, God's going to punish you. You've been naughty. You're going to get punished. God's watching him. But I knew that wasn't true. So it was all a bit of a muddle. And so I didn't see why she would go to church every Sunday. You know, it was almost like to say, oh, well, I've sinned. I'm sorry. Well, here we go again. And I just didn't get it. So that was the sort of upbringing that I had. And I think it was good, because it made me question, and it made me stronger in my beliefs that God existed, and, you know, to follow that faith. And that faith has saved me many, many times all my life.
It reminds me, your story reminds me of one of the books that I read when I first was going through my awakenings. It's called The Celestine Prophecy.
Oh yeah, right.
That you're following the trail, just like that book, and all the synchronicities, all of the miracles just unfolding as you take the journey. And you've got to have guts to go and follow ourselves on a journey where you don't know where the end is. You don't know where you're going to be maybe sleeping that night. But it's the journey which gives you the experience for the wisdom to flow through, right?
Yeah, it's true. And my journey, my life's journey has been phenomenal. And, you know, I've survived cancer twice. I've had a nervous breakdown. But all of it has been, you know, miracles upon miracles. And to live that is phenomenal. And to understand it, I think, and have the faith that you're okay, and you can train your mind to be balanced and stop the thinking that drives you into all different scenarios and situations, and to keep getting knowledge, getting information. Like, you know, you were doing my birth chart today. That's fascinating, and it adds new layers, gives a new awareness, a new awakening on different things, makes you think, and that's for me really important.
Well, I'm really pleased. It's a pleasure to share with you. So with regards to the signature, after writing the process, after being a channel and a conduit and feeling the energy come through you and absorbing the experience, what have you learned through the process? It's a bit like you're talking about a hidden amulet, but the amulet is the signature, correct? It is this missing piece, or this prophecy, or this. Can you give us this defining message that comes through of your book?
Yes, well, you see, I think 1901 was when inverted commas a peace treaty came about with the British going in to Tibet. It wasn't a peace treaty; it was a slaughter. And so my first part of the book is about a young boy from the Highlands of Scotland who doesn't want to be an estate manager for his father, and he runs away. Prior to him running away, he has a relationship with a very young girl who then later becomes pregnant, but he's gone. And he joins the army, and he finds himself in 1901 in this in Tibet, and he's looking at the Tibetans. He doesn't believe it. You know, these are just very humble, peaceful people, and they literally are invading, and they're killing them. And the Tibetans, they only have like wooden, you know, they don't have any form, they don't even have an army to fight back. And so you know, there was force used, and he's looking at this, and one of the Tibetans he comes across is dying, a lama, and he sees the blood, and he gets so drawn to the lama's eyes, and the lama who's dying hands him the amulet. And this is a hardened soldier. He doesn't care about anything. But in that moment, he has an awakening. And in that moment, he cannot really function as a soldier. And so he takes the amulet, and he, with the coral string, because you see that the Tibetans used to wear the amulet because they believed it would protect them. That's what the amulet was about. It was protection. So he got this amulet, and he kept it forever. But when he was in Tibet, he got involved. He was at a sky burial. He just happened to come across a sky burial, and he knocked over a Tibetan woman who was heavily pregnant. And she then, well, I don't want to tell you too much of the story, but he vows to look after her daughter, number one, and he vows to return to Tibet. And so we have the journey of him living in Tibet until he moves in the army to India, until as an old man, and he's retired, he comes back to Scotland with all his possessions of Tibet. But now he's totally in retreat. He doesn't want to be around anyone. He's got all his possessions. He's never forgotten this lady in Tibet. And so he decides, he has his whiskey, and he sits by the fire in his ancestral home. And then he begins to reminisce all the time about Tibet. And on one of these journeys, he manages then to find himself out with the house. And it's the Himalayas, and it's the lilies, and it's Tibet he sees. And we then move from that scene into part 2 of the book, whereby just at the end of part 1, he is basically saying he's going back to Tibet. And at the last thing, he begins to hear new noises he begins to smell new smells. He can't see, and eventually he's hearing different voices and strange things going on. And basically, he said, then I've written that the character in part 2, Anil says to his wife, Mi thong dawa mo, it's a baby girl. So that should lead you to what's going on. So it's about reincarnation. And we then go to Tibet in part 2. And we follow a story of this baby in part 2. And then we move on to part 3, which is, interestingly, it's about a Scottish man in Tibet who's a doctor and becomes involved with a woman who has twins. And what he has to do, because it's in the 50s, the Chinese have invaded, he has to remove the baby girl. And because they wouldn't have accepted a baby girl, the Chinese. So the Scottish doctor takes this baby girl secretly out of Tibet and brings her home. And you follow her story, which is actually based on a true story. And then we come to part 4, which brings a lot of it all together and finalizes it in its reincarnation form.
Sounds really interesting. I really like that. I love the concept of the twins as well. It seems to happen a lot in actual folklore and manifestation in history, that twins can get split through these types of situations. And you say this is a true story following the young girl through her experience.
Part 2, yes. Part 2 is not based on a true story, actually, but part 3 is, that follows the baby girl.
That's so interesting. So what's your perspective on reincarnation? Because this seems to happen again and again. My perception myself is that we seem to play out very similar roles again and again through time. We might have certain characteristics or skill sets that we just pick up and we're so familiar with, like astrology for me, or sometimes it can be playing a guitar or whatever it might be, a certain characteristic that we just are able to feel comfortable with and just share. And so do you feel this is how reality is working with you and your experiences with other people?
For reincarnation, if we're talking about reincarnation, yeah?
Yes.
I mean, I wrote The Signature from Tibet without really knowing anything about reincarnation or thinking anything about reincarnation or necessarily even believing in reincarnation. But from writing that, I believe in reincarnation. And from what I know, the scientists have found, and we know that our cells give off sparks of light. So we're light. Within light is information. We know many people have told us, have had experience of the light leaving the body, right, when we die. So light equals information, equals knowledge, equals frequency, vibration, sound, color, energy, matter.
Yes.
Now, when I do my readings and I manage to tap into people who have passed over, I believe I'm getting that from their energy, their electromagnetic field. That's what I believe. So, because I believe now, having gone through the Signature of Tibet and all the experiences that I've gone through, is that it's the light that comes in at birth, well, at conception, and it's the light that leaves us at death. And the Bible says in the beginning there was light, and it's that light that is our energetic blueprint, our map that we have possibly had for many centuries. So the 16th Kamapa, in theory, this is now the 17th Kamapa. The 17th Kamapa looks at this tour program and he has to recognize it or not. Which one is he going to do? And he recognizes it because in theory, he wrote it. He wrote it in 74. So, and now we're in I think 2008. So he recognizes it. And by recognizing it, he's saying, I am the rightful Kamapa. I am the reincarnation. So it's much bigger than what we can simply think about or analyze. It's much bigger. And
imagine this, like, for a concept then. So if we're playing with this and we know that, you know, our days are numbered, we're not going to be going on much further than 100 if we're lucky, but we meet somebody who we feel is entrusted or spiritually prominent within experience, and we give them, like you were given, this token or this relic, and then we manifest again maybe 50 years later and we're in another body and we bump into the person that we given this relic to, and then that manifests. That's imagine if this is actually something that we all do fairly regular, but we're not even conscious of it, but we can awaken to it.
Exactly. We don't know. I believe that my belief with the mind training of His Holiness the 16th Kamapa, he knew exactly what he was doing. They can see in the future. I have been blown away by, you know, experiencing these, like Akon Rinpoche. I was a lot in his presence, and remarkable men, beyond what even I can comprehend, except I believe it to be true.
So did you do like any meditation or yoga or any ayahuasca type of experiences, or when you were in Tibet? I don't know what kind of traditions that they may have.
Well, no, they do. What I do is I do breathing, which I find really effective, which is to do with, actually I follow the Wim Hof method, which is phenomenal.
Wim Hof, that's the Iceman, right?
Yeah.
Very good. I'd love to interview him one day. He's the guy who jumps into the cold ice water every day, and that gives his nervous system, which is ruled by Uranus and Venus, a great awakening, because it brings all the light, the ions, which contains all the information of our spirit. It awakens it because it functions going off like this.
That's
so for me, an hour or two ago, before we connected, I like a warm shower for at least 10-15 minutes. But then I get a Wim Hof and I turn it up to full blast cold for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just have a cold shower I do the breathing, then I have my cold shower every day.
Well, you do the whole thing cold. That's very brave.
Well, not really. Which, you know what I love about it is you can push yourself beyond what you think you can do. And so before I get in the cold shower, which is very powerful, as you can imagine, when it's just on cold, I just say to myself, I look in the mirror and I say, well, do you want to do it? Do you not? And the answer is yeah, because I know the experience will create the outcome of feeling, wow. So and so therefore, when I get in that, I walk straight into the cold shower. I'm in control of my mind. I'm not thinking. And to stop your thinking, even when you're doing Wim Hof's breathing, you're not thinking. And I do a mantra. It's the Om Tara Tutari Turi Soha, a mantra of it just so happens I know it and I like it. So that's the one I use. And so I become, you know how people say, oh, you know, my body's heavy and I just need to get out of my body into my spirit. And I'm like, no. Take your mind into your body and then become one, then you become light. Then you don't feel your body. It's to match the two without the thinking, for me, is phenomenal.
That is a nugget, Alison. That's the gold. Because from a mercurial being like yourself, with Mercury conjunct the South Node and the Sun in Gemini, one would think that you're just going to be a chatterbox. Talking all the time, thinking all the time, but you're showing that actually the greatest clarity comes when you're able to silence the mind and come into your full presence.
It's very true.
I'm going to be practicing that. I mean, actually, I'm a thinking person all the time. I'm always thinking sometimes a bit too much, and I did have some of my most spiritual experiences when I have come into meditation and when I've come into counting my breath and being present. And it's has to be a deliberate choice, just like going into that cold shower. It has to be I'm committing to this.
Absolutely. Could you give me 2-3 seconds? I just need to talk to someone who's just come in. Can
Sure. Well, that's so interesting that we are able to come into presence in those different spiritual practices. But it's, as you say, it's a continued practice to redirect the attention for all of the continuous distractions. I've personally got like eczema, and so it can be just an itch, or then it's the phone, and then it's the next door neighbor, then it's the whatever it is. And so we just got to surrender and come into that space, come into the, as you say, come into the body.
Yeah.
It's really useful. So I've been an astrologer for like working full-time professionally for 2015, 2016, no other jobs. It's just been my line of work. Been studying for about 10 years. But it was when I first come into work with tarot cards, I was a little bit taken aback by the imagery. Some of them are very poignant images. For me now, I've been working with it so long that it's just like the back of my hand, the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, all of the archetypal cards. Just to draw one right now. Oh, suit you, Alison, the Empress. Because you are a Taurus rising conjunction with Venus. And so the Empress is all things nice, sugars and spice. It's all the great things. It's Venus. So it's the Christ consciousness that's within us all. And it's the beauty that comes through the emanation of darkness. As you said, the light comes through darkness. So that's all that ravishing, radiant stuff like that. But not always the cards so pleasant on the eye as that. Like the death card can be a bit intimidating. However, when I pull the death card, I'm like, wow, that's great. That's transmutation. It means that I'm not holding on to something which is done with. And so I can always put a silver lining onto whatever intimidating card shows up and help people with that energy if that's what we're facing. However, I checked out you've got a really good YouTube channel, and you've got where you're going to be presenting more and more information. But you do a video on your own tarot deck, which I was really impressed by, and you're using colours, which is vibrationally healing. I'd love to learn more on how this technique with the tarot deck works and what inspired this, because it seems to be, personally, for me, when I first got into them, I was like, I don't even want to touch them. It's because it was bringing up past life experiences where maybe I was told that tarot or astrology is something demonized. Maybe I lost my life due to my craft and previous experiences. I don't know. But I know that a lot of us have this heaviness that we have the opportunity to transmute. And I would like to, I see that you're making a great effort with regards to your creation.
Yeah. Thank you. Colour, when I was very ill, had a nervous breakdown, and I found somebody who, by fluke, inverted commas, another coincidence of such, and she introduced me to the language of colour, and it was like I had come home. And I actually trained with the late Vicky Wall, and that was an incredible experience. And I realized this language of color, whether it's in marketing, the clothes you wear, the home decor, it speaks a language. And funny enough, I did a program called House Busters. So we had to tell what was wrong with the people in the house by the colors in the house, and it just works. And so I started doing a lot of readings for people, and they got more and more and more. And I was doing them through a system that I had made, that was based on Aura Soma and coloured bottles, but I found, I don't want to carry them around. So I had a vision of a pack of cards that would just slot into my handbag, that I could hold in my hand, that weren't so big I couldn't mix them, and so big that, I didn't want a box that was heavy in my handbag. And so I don't even know where they were here, because I was working with them earlier, but where they've gone, I don't know. They're a small, here they are. I was working with, but I don't think they'll necessarily show up. I don't think they show up because of the screen I've got.
Well, maybe can you hold it in front of your jumper? And it might show up. Yes, so I can see them there. If you hold it, if you bring it closer to the screen a bit more. and lift it up a bit. Yes, if you lift it up a bit more, and then we can see them. And yes, it's not picking up this crazy screen. They look beautiful packet. I can't quite see, but you can see them. People can see them online properly on your YouTube channel, which I'm going to link in the description box of this video.
Perfect. So
you've got a beautiful video where you actually display them, and they are. I would like to get a pack because they look so healing for people who maybe not really wanting to work with that energy. It looks very good. So and also with the vibrational color wheel, all the colors in the spectrum go around a wheel, just like the astrology chart. Yeah. And so the 360 degrees shows the vibrations in our relationship to all things. And so you're completely 100% on the money with regards to how this works as a very precise tool.
Yeah. It's, it's a language of color. We all know it because we're light, if we take it back to that. So we're in part, we have an electromagnetic field, and that electromagnetic field, of course, is energy, waves of energy vibrating at different frequencies. So people might say, oh, I didn't get a good vibe in that room, but they don't know what they're saying. What they're saying is, I am picking up on the vibration of this room and I don't like it. So they're probably transcoding it into a color they don't like. That could be black, gray, whatever color, but we all know. Or we might have said, oh, they look really off color. Or so all these, red with rage, blue, feeling blue, a lot of it is based on symptoms of looking at the person and then transcoding what's around them. So the language of color is used in our everyday life at all times. Nature is color, it's energy, frequency, vibration, sound, matter. So I put together what these colors identified for a person choosing them. So it would be single colors or dual colors. So if I was told to make a color maroon pink and call it the marriage bottle, that was from Spirit. So anyone choosing that card would then immediately link me to their marriage, their relationship. And if it was in the front row, it would be something that is important for them to look at. If it's in the back row, they're probably divorced, they're going through a difficult relationship. If it's matched with the red, there could be anger, frustration, abuse. If it's matched with the, say, yellow-green, they're looking to change direction. So actually, we can tell a person's past, where they've been, the patterns, the conditions, the beliefs that they're holding on to, and then bring them to the present, whereby they can change their thinking with certain tools, because I've done NLP, different things like that, and move them into the future. Because one of the most important things is, and you'll know this, is to show someone what their purpose is. Because when they identify the true I, who they were born as, not any other aspects of themselves that's come from other people, but the true I, and how they can develop into their purpose and find their purpose, then they will become aligned with their mind, body, and soul. So that's the basis of the cards. And I do face reading as well, which is very interesting.
Oh yeah, you were talking, so the cards is one thing, and that's very useful. It sounds like a very practical tool and method that you just described. I'd be very interested to try that out and to work with different clients with them. But you were talking about face reading as well. And as an astrologer, one of the first astrology books that I read, they're talking about the different archetypal faces that we have within the signs. And yourself as a Taurus rising, although you're a Gemini sun, you have the classic Venetian like facial features, nice full lips, beautiful face, nice features. And so that's obviously the natural Taurian way. And so tell me more about this for yourself, how you've experienced learning this.
Well, the elements earth, air, fire, water are seen in everyone's face in order of predominance within the face. And so, for example, large eyes would indicate a water, and then we can look at all the attributes of the water personality. But they come in, it was philosophers who were artists who all their life they studied this. And they would have people come to their home, they would then provoke them, and then they would write down their findings. They then realized that when they painted a certain shape of face, then when that shape of face came in, they'd provoke them, and they'd realise, wow, well, that person behaved in the same manner as the other person that we painted the face. So they began to profile everyone who came in every day, because they were doing this every day. So
it's a famous artistic term as well, isn't it? So the philosophy of art wasn't just necessarily for drawing beautiful pictures, but was for psychology also, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
You're teaching me a lot here. You're teaching me good.
Yeah. So we just look at the shape of the face, and this is why, for example, I could predict who someone will be attracted to, because it will be always one of their last two elements. So the 4 elements, 2 female, the other elements, 2 male.
Can you do it with me as an example?
Yes, but for example, you are, this has got nothing to do with, any sexual innuendos, whatever, but we have female archetypes and we have male. And so you're a female archetype, and you're actually the same as me. So you're what we would say the actress. And this is suddenly change and become very flamboyant. That's okay. So
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Okay, so we can see that. And so therefore I know that you're coming from a feeling state. You will understand feelings, you'll be creative, you'll be psychic, you'll be developing, whether it's past lives, whether it's, as you do very well, astrology, all these things you will link to. You can go into a drama, things can almost push you off your center, and your energy can fluctuate. So what your second element is fire, and we call that in the box. So if I were to provoke you or emotionally on a situation, possibly against, say, a member of your family or something, like the fire or whatever situation it is, your fire jumps out the box.
So that's water and fire is, boiling water, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not cool.
No, but it's in a box, so you want to control it. You don't want to show it. But when you do show it, you really show it, and then you feel sorry, and the fire goes back in the box. Your third element.
My Chinese astrology is that I'm a year of the tiger, and the year of the tiger is the reason the tiger didn't win the race is because the tiger got too emotionally hot and bothered that it had to get into the swimming pool to cool off, and then the tiger's fur was too heavy and wet to get to the finish line.
That's a really clever way of putting it. Your other 2 elements are air and earth. So female personality actress, male personality observer. And when you switch, you'll suddenly switch into observing. And people say, well, what happened? What are you doing? They don't understand the switch. So the likelihood is you will be, and also because air, third, means you can always seek knowledge. But you've got to, stop and say, I am totally knowledgeable. I have as much knowledge as other people do. It can lead to being a bit airy-fairy, and having to sort of get a grip of that air knowledge. But your last element is earth. So of course, anything to do with the earth, the world, the elements, the universe, the planets, so all these things. So you're living your dream. By doing your astrology, you're living your dream and your purpose. So you will be attracted to somebody who is earth or air or earth, and they will be musical, intellectual.
It's funny because I do like strong, supportive women that allow me to kind of root myself so that I can ground myself more practically with all of the crazy things that I like to do. But I like them to be a bit crazy as well. So, not just...
Absolutely. Yeah. But you'll be driven, you're driven by your temperament. But I don't know what your temperament is because you're sitting down. I just take a guess it's fire.
Well,
You're
my temperament is
the temperament is seen in the body. So the overall shape of your body is your temperament, and I believe you're fire.
Okay.
In your temperament, so the fire pushes the behavior of the actress. So a fire temperament actress is different from an air temperament actress, from a water and from an earth. So it's the temperaments overall, and it governs how we react and how we behave.
So it's like kind of what we would pursue. Like, so fire likes to go after things which is inspirational or catchy. So, and that leads. So I might go, wow, that young lady seems like she's really grounded, earthly, but she knows her astrology. That's inspirational. I'm going this way. Yeah. Or I might be like, oh, they've got an astrology festival and some really cool music playing over there. That inspires me. I feel like dancing. I'm going that way.
And the fire's about energy. You're right. It's about energy. It's about movement. It's entrepreneurs running their own businesses, not wanting to be controlled by a boss, you know, wanting freedom. And so they're very much, they like to be spontaneous. They like to be creative. They like to be in the moment, and they like to have energy. They can suffer burnout, and they can also get other people frazzled, you know, with this high energy. But it's different.
I often
it's like my daughter is water, and I'm fire. So my daughter will say to me in a shop, "Can you slow down?" And I'll say to her, "Can you hurry up? Why would you read every label? We don't need to read. Fling it in the basket." And my daughter will come out with all the coupons. Who cares? Who cares? You can't find the 10p coupon. Just pay them. So this is how then the personalities come alive.
Yeah. So we kind of give the funny thing is the nearest and dearest. They often do bring us the opposition to our polarity, don't they? The opposition to our elemental expression, so that we can learn through that which we've got least experience at. And that means we get to lend more compassion to those around us and also to ourselves in our tolerance for these things.
I think it was the biggest thing I learned, because it taught me who I truly am, who I am, not who I thought I was. And I remember my teacher, when I found out the system, I said, "You need to teach me." And this elderly gentleman said, "Okay." So he came up to Scotland and he said to me, "Well, of course, your personality is closed." And I was like, "Rubbish. I listen to everybody. I don't." He says, "Well, why are you arguing with me?" So that taught me. And so knowing and understanding the personalities teaches you how to communicate with other people and how they think, most importantly, so you can then think like them. And therefore you develop really good relationships, because you understand, like, for example, my mother was the old woman. That means earth first. We just couldn't get on. She just moaned all the time, and she was like the nosy neighbour, and everything was. And I realised the best way to have a relationship with her was to tell her all the dreadful news that was in the papers that day. You know, the horrific story. She loved them. She came alive.
So you using this information as an alchemist to help not only yourself but also those around you who may have caused you frustration, but actually to bring a dearer, a nearer relationship. That's very, very compassionate and wise of you. I feel that actually you teaching this information in a group, I've got ambitions to have. I don't know how this world's going to continue forward, but I'm excited for a touring festival of spiritual yoga, astrology, and healers, music, arts. And so I'd love to be at a festival with you and or workshop, and for us all to learn about face types and how we can alchemize, and to use the different tarot cards, and to listen to readings of your book and all of these types of things. It's really been great learning about what you're providing, what you're showing up for, and I feel like the journey's only just getting started for you.
Starting, and I think what you're doing is fascinating, and I think it'd be good to link up again, and we could maybe do an online workshop. Who knows? If
Yeah,
there's
I am
because
open.
what you've got to offer gave me insights today. So it's great.
It's really exciting. Well, I'm going to link your description, your YouTube channel, and links to where people can get your content in the description below. But have you got any? Would you like to articulate for anybody watching how they can contact you?
Oh, just through, I've got a Facebook page. I mean, I'm contactable, alisondemarco.com website. You'll be doing that. So I look forward to hearing from anyone and from yourself again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. I know that we can go much further, and so I look forward to future interactions. But other than that,
Absolutely.
thank you for your moments today, and thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you.